Today we'll be covering the case of Ellen West, from Michel Foucault's 1954 work, Binswanger and Existential Analysis. We begin with the division between the practitioners of psychopathology. On one hand, we have the clinicians, focused on deviations from normality and dispossessions of higher faculties. On the other hand, psychopathologists inspired by phenomenology. Binswanger, for example, with a focus on subjective experience of the patient's world, and not the agent of the disease, but the speech and meaning of the disease, something that the clinic cannot confirm. Yet if Binswanger gives voice to the mad, and if he hears them speak, we must ask what he does with this meaning. Does he help it find expression or liberation, or recapture it in knowledge? Let's review the history of the patient. Ellen West belongs to a Jewish family. She has an authoritarian father who plays the man of action, but he has attacks of depression, and her mother also, who is gentle and dreamy, also suffered a long bout of depression. Ellen West is the middle among two brothers, the elder, like her father, the younger, an effeminate aesthete. In her childhood, it is noted that at 9 months she refused milk, but in general she has little memory of her childhood. She is diligent, proud, and distant, and in her adolescence she is amused by boys' games. In one of her poems, she says her wish is to be a boy, to become a warrior, and to die sword in hand. Until then she had been strongly religious, but became passionate about religious nihilism. She repeated Niels Lin, "No home on earth, no God in heaven, no destination in the future." And she follows him in his exaltation of the individual. The strength and independence of the human race reside in the belief in oneself. The man she wants to love must be tall and strong, have a soul as pure as the morning light, not dream of his life, but only live it with all seriousness and all its joy. When she was 20, she made a trip to Sicily, and these were the first shadows. She's lost in words, she despises her body, she no longer fears death. The luxury of her bourgeois life oppresses her, and she is nervous in the presence of other people. Yet the depression dissipates and gives way to a sort of exalted love of death. She writes, "The bird dies in the highest jubilation, and not to live like a worm, hateful and obscure." But her refusal of food becomes more pronounced. To lose weight, she takes 36 to 48 thyroidin tablets a day, and she is beset by an ambiguous desire to have a child and an anxious fear of gaining weight. And hope will spring like an ascent before the tragic fall. It's an illness that closes on her like a destiny, she feels. At the age of 32, she tries psychoanalysis. She reports an interior conflict. Obsessions, the need to think about food, against a fixed idea of becoming thin. Each meal becomes an interior drama. Feeling ever more incapable of living. In the morning she was found dead. She had poisoned herself. Binswanger is not dissimilar from Genet in his analysis. For them, the behavior indicates a disturbance, much like a quavering voice indicates an angered subjectivity. In the terms of Peircean semiotics, it serves as an index. What the eating disorder indicates in Ellen West is that it is impossible for her to assimilate reality. But the crucial distinction that Binswanger makes is in the origin of this disturbance. While not a disintegration of faculties, nor is it the effect of an intrusive agent, Binswanger wonders if the pathological behavior is not the consequence, but the origin, the originary project of a patient. And in this sense, there is a concern that psychoanalysis can do nothing but confiscate meaning from the patient. Obviously, for Ellen West, there is a meaning that links thinness, spirituality, and a certain type of ethereal character. But we may not be able to look into a dream book or a book of symbols to interpret this. Do themes of fatness stand for pregnancy? On the contrary, they are constantly mixed with her. They don't refer us to symbols, but to a world. In her case, two worlds. One of youth, thinness, and momentum. The other, heavy with old age, ugliness, and the body. And an understanding of the illness must account for this contradiction. Eating as birth and eating as death. While there is indeed a meaning to the symbol, we must not neglect the meaning of the act of expression. And so for Binswanger, what do these acts of expression indicate? A compartmentalization of the world, which becomes more and more rigid. It is as if Binswanger was following an expressivist schema that sees in division conflict. Here, a conflict between the material environment, the Umwelt, and the social environment, the Mitwelt. This same division of selfishness versus sociality that current psychology denounces in children as stubbornness or obstinacy. It is as if, by retreating to her own world, she rejects her objective destiny. from dreams of ascent, heroism, social recognition, to isolation and a pilgrimage to the abyss. And we can summarize this divided world as divided between the ethereal and the underground, fantasy and tomb, hopes and threats. And while not entirely given over to anxiety, she fights against it. But by the end of her life, her effort has been exhausted. The only impact will be nostalgia. She has followed the schema of existential cycle and tragic expression. Death is the only way out. To die so as not to become ugly, but also to die so that one is allowed to rot. It is contradiction that pervades, alienates, divides. The desire to eat and the fear of gaining weight are an echo of this contradiction. Death seems to be the only escape. She experiences an incompleteness that is not dissimilar from Nietzsche's pathos, passion of the soul and illness of the body. Through food, she experiences a fullness of the body and an emptiness of the mind and heart. In this tragic division, the remaining linkage to the world is in the mode of a refusal. It is life itself that threatens and imprisons her. Hence, not so much the desire for suicide, but for new birth. This removes the illness from the realm of the supernatural, from the negativity of disintegration, and places it in the light of positive truth as expressions in concrete reality. Yet, it is important not to take these expressions as deviations from normality. That is, an illness that would be derivative of some other cause. The world of Ellen West is not a distortion of the real world, or the normal world. It is her world. The world of the sick person is not the process of illness. It is the person's project, with its own time and its own space. For example, the time of the schizophrenic may unfold in slow motion, while the time of the manic accelerates to the climax. Whereas for the obsessed person, space is bristling with barriers and prohibitions, which break with the coherent unity of this environment. Yet Binswanger does not seem content remaining on the level of the ontic. He seems to go as far as the ontological, as if defining essential species of worldview. That is, Binswanger's approach does not fail to be anthropological, as if the foundation of truth were man.